Okay, can we see the slide again, everyone?
Looks good.
Super. Okay, so it's 2 o'clock, so we'll get started. I'm sure a few more folks will join us as we get going. So yeah, hello and welcome to Show and Tell 17 for the project to build a website for the new local authority. So this is our 3-weekly show and tell where we kind of share progress on the work and invite a bit of conversation and a bit of feedback about what we've been doing. A reminder of the approach we're taking is one where we're learning as we go and always testing the things that we design and build with our users, an approach that's described as agile and user-centered. So I'm going to quickly recap on some of the things we've been talking about over the last couple of show and tells. And primarily that's around the kind of vision and roadmap for the product, something we've been promising to work on. And we have held a product vision workshop with colleagues across the teams working on this. And in setting up that workshop, we kind of reminded ourselves the purpose of having a product vision, and that it should be something that's ambitious, clear, and easy to understand. And that's a challenge, and I'm sure you've all had various visions at different organisations and different projects that are sometimes achieve this and sometimes are never any of these things. It's a tricky thing to nail down, but we wanted to make sure that it was super relevant to the work we're doing. And it should also ideally kind of fire people up and get them excited about the things that they're doing. So, you know, a vision that kind of avoids using too much jargon and too many kind of bland phrases. So in doing this, we ran quite a detailed workshop with colleagues, and I'm just going to go through some highlights. But one of the questions we asked ourselves was, did our original vision for this project meet the criteria that I've just set out? And so to do this, we had a lot of discussion around this, but the kind of result of that discussion was we looked at the old vision. You can see it there in the quotation marks. So we had to think about what some success criteria might be. About whether it describes benefits, is it short and snappy? And then after the conversation, we asked colleagues to kind of vote on a highly technical scale from the vision puts me to sleep to it gets me skipping and high-fiving at work. And you can see by the kind of weighting of voting there, it was kind of towards the slightly sleepy end of our scale. And we knew that. We kind of expected that going in. We had quite a practical vision for the start of this project because we were quite time bound with getting a thing done in time for Unitary. And so we made sure that we focused on a vision that helped get us there as quickly and as kind of minimize the risk in doing that. We now want to look out over a longer time horizon and have something that's a bit more ambitious and hopefully a little bit more exciting. So I'm not going to go through all of the conversation we had and all the discussion we had, but to kind of shortcut through it, we spent some time kind of talking about and crafting some different vision statements, and 2 of them kind of stood out above the rest, and the next 2 that I'm going to quickly show are what we're going to just have a bit of a think about and see if one sits above the other or if maybe we need to do some more work to kind of pull the best of each of them into one place. But the first, we talked about a vision that describes how we will give all of our residents more free time by making everything they do with the council faster and easier. You see quite a nice clustering of people's votes towards the top end of our scale there. And I think by and large, it meets those product vision success criteria. It's certainly quite short and snappy, and it's pretty ambitious as well, and talks about benefits to users. So we're quite keen on that one. And the second, giving people a way to find what they need quickly and complete their tasks easily, whilst continuously developing and improving to meet evolving user expectations. So I think the votes here were a bit more spread out. So we had some people loving it, some people liking it a little bit less. It's a bit longer, but it does talk a bit more about both the user's perspective, but also the need to kind of continuously build and develop the technology we're working with. So something that is quite an exciting proposition for the team who are working on this as well. So I think what you can expect over the next couple of weeks is for us to have kind of polished one or a kind of combination of both of these into something that will set the direction and be our kind of guiding star, I guess, for the work we do over the next few months. Looking at a slightly shorter time horizon, these are the things we've been doing over the last 3 weeks, and we're going to be running through the things in the current work stream box mostly today, and mostly talking about the first on that list around some discovery work that we've started. So I think I'm going to hand over to Tori now. Tori, if you just want to talk away and let me know when you want the slides moving.
Great, thanks, Ben. So hi, I'm Tori. For those of you who don't know me, I joined customer improvement team at beginning of June. So I've been here a few months now. So now we're starting to look at the future and move away from the COVID response. One of the areas that are key to continuing on improving for customers will be looking at how residents access our services and reviewing how we provide a great customer experience, regardless of how they come into us and what they need from us. Excuse me, I've got a really sore throat today. I can already feel it going as I'm talking to you. So I'm sure you'll be aware, all of the incumbent councils had very different customer management tools, and the cost associated to running all of those in parallel is obviously going to be really significant. We've got 4 CRMs in the customer service facing teams, all really different, really separate, and very difficult at the moment for CSAs to answer queries at a first point of contact with a customer. So we want to look at how we can improve that for customers, but also internally sooner rather than later, and moving forward on our journey of bringing us all together in a one customer and council approach. So Ben, you can move on now. Thanks. So the initial review that I'm working with on Unboxed is to look at how we make this better and then what we're going to do going forward after that. So the need right now is to focus on putting the customer first and moving as many transactions online as we possibly can. And looking at the possibility of reducing the amount of CRM systems that we have, just to make the whole process better for the customer and the staff using those systems, and just making that whole customer experience better. So I think I'm going to pass over to, is it Boris or Lawrence now, to talk about what we've actually been up to the last 3 weeks.
I think it's me first. So hi, yeah, I'm Lawrence. I'm working for Unboxed as the user researcher on this project. So what have we done the last 3 weeks? It's a discovery, so we've been going out and doing lots of interviews, mainly at this stage talking with the internal staff, so at the customer service centres, talking with advisors, talking with supervisors and resourcing team, and also the programme heads. This is to get a better understanding of the processes that are in place from the internal side, some of the business needs. But we've also been starting some work on understanding the resident perspective. We've made a survey and sent that out to a number of residents that we have on record, and we've got 45 responses so far, and hopefully more in the process. So kind of approaching things from both sides. We've also had a workshop with some key stakeholders, some of whom might be on this call. That was to kind of understand the differences and similarities perhaps between those 4 different customer service centres and get everyone on the same page. And we've also started to do some more in-depth interviews, so working from those questionnaires and actually doing some qualitative interviews with residents to get more of their views. So next slide. Yeah, so one of the things that we have been using is the Good Services framework. And so this derives from the book called Good Services, which is written by Lou Down, who has worked for a number of years in the government digital service. So that's doing work for gov.uk. She's been kind of shaping what service design means for that organisation. So it's a pretty good benchmark to use for local government. And what it does in that book is set out these 15 different principles for making good services. And our plan is to use that to assess and design services, in this case, from a more resident perspective. That little diagram you can see at the bottom is in relation to the resident survey. So we asked sort of 15 questions using those principles as a starting point to see where the good things were happening, so those green comments, and also perhaps where improvements or where kind of issues might lay with those orange comments there. I believe Boris will be talking about that a little bit more later. So I'll move on to the next slide. Hopefully. So just jumping back to, so these are some sort of early insights from the internal perspective, not the residents at this point. So one kind of early insight, and it's worth bearing in mind at this stage that these are very early stage insights. These are kind of things that we're hearing, but we haven't kind of completed our kind of interviews yet. We haven't done too much synthesis yet, but these are some things that are emerging. The first insight is that this idea of a single view of citizens is not always complete most of the time. So perhaps there might be a bit of an unrealistic aim to go for a single view across all services in the short term. Some comments that back that up. This comment around there's an aim to have a CRM as a single source of truth, but actually services have only been integrated around 80% of the time. The number of services or service areas that are using other systems. And the second comment is around, we tried using the CRM for everything, but the work to do that wasn't finished. So there's this system called Uniform, which is another service area system. And that means that teams are having to use two types of system, which is a bit of a challenge. It means learning two different systems and jumping between them. So that's the first insight. The next one is any of them. Next insight is my account sign up is high. So there's a lot of people using my account, but it appears like those that return to use it perhaps aren't quite as high. So that means that perhaps there's a lot of accounts and maybe not that many reusing it, maybe a little bit of duplication. So this first comment is around having 25,000 residents having signed up, but only 15% returning to use the platform for other use cases. So yeah, it's an early insight. Perhaps there's different things going on there. It could be that there's duplication of accounts, or maybe they're using different channels to return for other use cases. We don't quite know yet. And then the second comment around every 3 requests, only 1 person signs up for an account. Yeah, so that's the second insight. Third one is around KPIs being aligned. It seems to be more around internal processes rather than customer feedback. This definitely varies between the different CSEs in the ways that they capture feedback and then make use of it. We're aware that some CSEs are using customer data to drive changes, but perhaps it's not consistent. So the first comment is around we don't currently report on customer service satisfaction or get feedback. The second one is customer feedback information is collected via online forms, post phone call surveys, web chat, so lots of different channels, but then actually nothing much significant is done with the data. So it's being captured, but there's maybe a question about how it might be used to create change or improve maybe some of the content design as a result of feedback. So these are some early insights that we will be looking into sort of iterating on in the coming weeks. I think I'm going to hand over to Boris now.
Thank you, Lawrence. So I'm Boris, also from Unboxed, working on similar things on this CRM as Lawrence. So I will cover some of the insights from residents, since I did a bit of analysis of the answers that came through the survey. So there were some longer answers that came through that, and also adding some insights from the first interview with the resident that we did yesterday. So that was like a 1-hour interview where we explored some issues in more depth. So I think first thing I would like to talk about is this one, which where from a resident perspective, obviously a request is not completed until a resident feels like it's completed, and I feel like that's quite an important important issue to understand properly, because for some residents it happens that not all the requests do get completed, but in some cases there are currently no processes in place to follow up on that, right? And then especially when things are not completed properly or in time, This is the point where residents really feel quite aggravated. So they do sometimes expect the council to be a bit more honest in their communications about why that happened, or even just follow up and say, all right, we see that this wasn't completed, and we just kind of want to follow through with an email to see if how can we follow up on that issue, right? So that's the first thing that's really important, and also came through as a negative point on that survey we did, the diagram that Lauren showed in the beginning, right? So that's like one of the things that really scores quite low when it happens, right? We should always set clear and honest expectations. That's in relation partly to the previous thing I was talking about, and also in the sense that we need to prepare residents whenever they are about to make a request, right? To just make sure that they understand what exactly is going to happen, and also when they've completed the request online, for example, they know has that gone through? Has it not gone through? So we talked to a resident yesterday that said that I've gone through to my account to log something, and then I rang up as well just to see if I could push it any further, right? And that's partly due to the fact that it's not always clear when they log in something in my account, it's not always clear that that actually has come through to a service to complete that request, right? So it says that obviously the request was received, but it's not quite clear that that's actually gone through to the right people and when exactly that's going to be completed. So I think that's quite a useful insight for us, because it means if residents are both using my account and calling up, that's clearly not going towards our goal to move most of the resident interactions online, right? So this is something to look into. Not all residents' experiences are bad, right? So it's important to acknowledge that. I think there probably is quite a lot of good work going on in all the customer service centers, and these are some of the responses that came through from the survey. For example, someone was very pleased with an email from the libraries. That they received a lot of information, very quick response, very helpful. Someone else completed a council tax request online, saying the system was accessible and easy to use. Someone else has said that the staff was very friendly and helpful on a phone call. So clearly there are very positive experiences, but it's important to acknowledge that trust is very easy to lose, right? So while a lot of the experiences might be positive, we really need to set quite a high bar so that we don't actually diminish that trust that is established with the hard work we do. Next slide. So the one more thing that happened in this sprint was a workshop, which was really meant as an alignment workshop between all the different stakeholders on this project. As if I'm sure you're aware, there are a lot of different people, working in the different service centers already, and within the IT and the web team, and there's a lot of different stakeholders on this particular project and a lot of different interests in it. So we wanted to make sure to bring all the people that might be involved together to just come to some kind of alignment around what the goals are that we're looking for, what might be the risks that we might encounter during our work here. And so some of the things we talked about, for example, were clearly there needs to be a focus on resident needs, so including some vulnerable groups. We know that not everyone is able to use, for example, online services equally well, so we need to make sure that those are catered for. We definitely need alignment and consistency across the council, right? So we do want to have that one council approach, and currently we know there is quite a lot of different softwares being used, quite a lot of different information in different places, including, for example, what's on the website and what's in the internal knowledge base, right? So all those things need some easy way of being aligned. Otherwise, it's quite confusing when residents call up and they might not get the same information as on the website. Clarifying complexities of the current setup, that's definitely one of the key goals of this discovery, right? Is just trying to understand what's in place already and what might take to untangle some of those complexities. And I think as one of the risks that everyone was aware of as well in the workshop was that we need to be mindful of overcomplicating, right? So an ideal solution might not exist. So how can we create something that's useful, valuable, and simple to actually create quickly, rather than trying to really create an ideal system that might take forever to implement. And this is all for the CRM workstream so far. I think I'm handing over back to Myself. Great. Policy and strategy pages. So that's another work stream that's separate from the CRM discovery, and it has been going on for a while. So this is mainly in the hands of the policy team at the moment, but we are working with the policy team to shape how future policy documents might be created. So we're currently helping them create some guidance for producing policies and strategies. Particularly from our perspective, we want to make sure that these are created in a very accessible way, so that both the documents that are available on the website as well as the web pages themselves, need some kind of criteria for accessibility, including the language being written in a way that's quite easy to understand, and that's sometimes quite difficult with these long documents. We have also created some new Word templates that we want in the future to use them to kind of upload documents to the website more easily and transform that automatically into HTML. And we have now shared the first version of these templates with some services to try and use them. One of the first things we're going to try to use them for is the taxi licensing policy, which is currently being reviewed. So that's quite exciting time for the Word templates. Next. Over to Ben.
Great, thank you, everybody. So I think I'm going to guide us through to the end, and we should just about have enough time for some questions as well. So, colleagues who've been listening, this is your time to either start thinking of a question to ask at the end, or pop it into the chat bar, and then we can answer as many of those as we can when we get to the end of this bit of presentation. So. One of the other work streams we've been particularly focused on over the last few weeks is some work we've been doing with the Family Information Service. There's been another project running to redesign some of the technology they use in their kind of back office system, how they take data from Ofsted, how they present that out to their users as something that they can search for and find online. But in terms of creating a coherent service from all of that, there's an awful lot of content, just information that needs to be published online that connects a user looking for something through a journey to help them then go and search for a service that they might need in a directory, for example. So to make that happen, we've got a few bits of work that are kind of coming up the priority list over the next couple of sprints. One of those is some design work that was done on some specific templates for the Family Information Service. And this is a bit of an evolution of some of our current designs, where we're starting to look at services that need, for one reason or another, a slightly different identity, or some, a little bit more kind of visual appeal on some of their pages within the new website. So one of the first services we're going to be exploring that with is Family Information Service, and also looking at how that integrates between the content on our website and this directory service that will be hosted somewhere else, and making sure that's as seamless as possible. So in this example here, when somebody searches for childcare within the website, they're kind of fairly invisibly handed off to a different product designed in a very similar way to give them the answers they need. We've also got a kind of a draft information architecture, so a way we organize all of the content on the website that we need to work through. And there's quite a lot of content that's published on the Bucks Family Info website right now that either needs to be unpublished, perhaps it's something that we're not the authority on, or it's duplicated elsewhere, and things that need to be rewritten, redrafted, and made into a shape that fits within the way our new website's been designed. So there's a chunk of work to do, both in terms of getting some things through our development pipeline, but also we're bringing in some additional content design support as well. So we're going to have another content designer join the project team for the next couple of months, because there's just an awful lot of work to do on this, and then with a few projects that are going to be coming behind it as well. So we're not going to go into super detail there. It's a slightly separate project that's being managed, but we're doing our bit on the web side to help it be successful. So next steps, we've got a few things to do. Nice blank page for you. So off the back of the vision workshop that I was talking about, and setting a kind of long-term vision for this particular product, the next thing we'll be doing is looking at some slightly shorter time horizons. So these will be planning out some of the steps to help us get there. And I've pinched a format that was put together by somebody called Jamie Arnold, who, if you're into this stuff, you can go and Google them. You can find lots of writing about how they think about doing roadmaps and plans. But the intent here is we'll be asking ourselves some questions. And you'll see from that first box in the top left, what are we trying to learn or prove? The intent of that really is to get us back into a team that's really focused on learning and thinking about our users. We've fell into the trap a little bit of being a kind of traditional waterfall project that had some very specific deadlines and some very specific outputs that we had to build, like a working website and a content management system. All good stuff, but we need to kind of turn that around and be a bit more true to our agile principles by focusing on experimentation and learning, so that we're always building the right things. And so what we'll be starting to do is plan out what's happening with a fairly high degree of confidence over the next 3 months, what's likely to happen over the next 6 to 9 months, and then things in a slightly longer term box are in the kind of 50-50, may or may not happen within that time frame. And what we think this will help us do is explain to the organization broadly what's going to be happening and when. We can never be exact, because things change and we learn new things as we go, but we think this will help the team, as I say focused on being a truly kind of agile and learning team, but also give clarity to our colleagues around the organization about what to expect and when. So some of the specific next steps, we'll be working through all of these discovery insights, as I say, working on the family information stuff, getting some extra content support, continuing to build out our roadmap, and then starting to look at some of the other services who are kind of lining up behind the family information service, who need to have some of their content migrated from other websites, old websites that we're looking to start switching off. And hopefully we'll be able to tell you a little bit more about that at the next show and tell on the 13th. So that's the end of the slides. This is your time. We've got a few minutes if anybody's got any questions they wanted to ask of anything that the team have just been talking about.
Ben, this is Simon here from Chiltern South Bucks area. Just a quick question around the CRM discovery, which is all really good. Like the workshop that Lawrence and Boris did the other week was excellent, like really well facilitated. But I just wondered what we mean by actionable recommendations. So could you put a bit of context behind that so we get an idea of what the tangible output will actually be?
Who wants to pick this one up? I can talk in high-level general terms, but Boris or Lawrence want to talk in specifics about the project?
Yeah, I can talk about some things, and maybe Tori wants to add some things as well. I think we are going to have another workshop that's quite important for us, because we really want to make sure that we kind of co-create these recommendations from the insights, right? This is not just us, telling us what to do, telling you what to do, but rather like, we can present the things that we learned so far and kind of put everything together in a form of the right questions, but then the recommendations we really need to go through together. I think what I'd quite like to see out of this is recommendations that we can really take directly into the next stages of work, right? So it means we might give some options into say, right, we could go with this CRM or the other CRM, or what kind of type of CRM. And then during that workshop, we might come up with some kind of decisions for, all right, let's try a particular work stream around this particular recommendation. So I think, yeah, I would really envision quite tangible outputs in terms of saying, there are teams in place that are going to start working on this and this thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Something to add
sorry,
as well.
Sorry, Tori, go for it.
No,
yeah,
that's all right. I think as well, we've been talking this morning, myself and Unbox and Mike, around the things that we can improve immediately, in the immediate future, and really look for those recommendations, and then also how we build that into the long-term strategy. But we are definitely looking for tangible outcomes that we can put in place almost immediately.
And maybe another thing to reiterate, right? We also presented a little bit about that good services framework earlier. I think that's a framework we're going to be trying to use across all the different service improvement projects within the council, if possible, to represent that resident perspective. And that's something we can use within the CRM workstream already to pinpoint the areas, like, which of those 15 points, for example, we are currently not serving well. And that will definitely give us focus to say, right, this is something we can start improving immediately.
So last little bit from me, and again, as I say, speaking in very broad terms. So when we do a discovery, the intent is always about learning. So the purpose of this is to understand who the users of these services are, and how they're getting on when they do some of this. So you saw some of those insights there, but also to have a bit of a deep look at what's going on behind the scenes. How are staff getting on with these things? What's good or difficult for them day to day? What's the reality of the technology landscape? As you know, we've brought lots of councils together, and that creates its own particular kind of set of technical spaghetti behind the scenes, and to try and avoid placing bets on any particular solutions this early. So in the next logical step is usually some form of prototyping after you've done your discovery. So we'll either identify things we want to fix quickly, or we might say, actually, we've got a really big risky assumption over here that we think the best way to kind of de-risk it would be to test some things and to see what's viable, what might be a right way of solving things in the future. And I think last thing I'll say on a discovery of this nature is it's so big and so sprawling and covers so many different possible areas. I think what we're also likely to see is some recommendations that say we think we should probably do some more focused discovery on some other elements of what we see. Because it carries over into things like master data management, how people make payments, how people interact with different types of services at different times. So there's a lot going on when you say the word CRM. It has arms and legs that touch quite a lot of the organization. So any number of those kind of things will be the types of things, as Boris says, we'll want to kind of co-create with the team and decide together what's going to both help our director of customer services alleviate any particular pain right now, but also have a mind towards the future and be thinking about the type of direction we want to go, what kinds of user experiences we want to provide, and how we make sure we kind of future-proof with where we can the best and most flexible types of technology to support the work. Okay, we're up at 2:30, so obviously if you need to go, you can start bailing. Was there any last questions from anyone else? Crickets. Well, hopefully you all got what you needed from this session. We're always around and always happy to have kind of separate conversations or answer questions by email. You can find any of us, and again, if there's anything in there you want to know a bit more about or see another demo of something, do just give us a nudge. We're happy to come and talk to your teams. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us again, and we will see you all hopefully in a few weeks for the next one.